Hi everyone, so in this part of the tutorial we will tackle coloring different elements and linking them to our trusty control layer, and as well I will show you how to create this glow effect and this displacement going on like around different parts of your image. Okay, so let's get started. So let's create a color control. Grab the color and link it like so. Okay, so now, and the last thing I'm gonna show you it's, where are you? Text. Now you can change the color of the text with your character panel, but then you cannot access this if you want to turn this whole setup into like a template for Essential Graphics. So the way to, yes you can, but it's easier if you have everything under one control layer and you send this template to like an editor, and then they can edit all the properties just using one control layer, instead of selecting a text and they have different panel to deal with. Okay, so the way you can do this is select your text layer, open up the properties and go animate color. Now what you can do is do the same thing, go like a border, crossbars, dot grids, everything, just link it to these controls. But what if you want to create this effect? If I go to tutorial example, to have like some of these guys like fade a little bit. So for example, there's control layer there. I built all this like lightness effect, I call them, like dot lightness, border, and so on. So then if independently I can make them to be just as bright as the main circle, right? Like the whole kind of radar and stuff like that, just for stylistic purposes. So I can dial it down a little bit. Likewise, right? So they really disappear. Okay, so the way you can do this is, let's just make them like 0.45. There you go. So they just poking out. It's create a couple more controls. So let's see. Slide them. Just gonna call this. And oh yeah, the spaceship marker. This guy. Actually, I'm gonna link it to be the same color as the circles themselves. So if I just grab it and link it to this color, it will be exactly the same. And let me just increase the border size, border thickness to like 5. There you go, so you can see. So the way you can create expressions to affect this is just like this. Okay, I'm gonna bring up. Okay, so I'm gonna just bring us the expressions. There you go. So we have our expressions, and let's just define control layer. Okay, so this is control. This value, main color, it comes as RGB value. So to use it in expressions, we have to convert this to HSL, which is hue, saturation, and lightness. Okay. So the way to do that is define control layer, then we're defining which one is the main color, which is this guy over there. Now we defining the border lightness, that our controller, which will affect the lightness of this layer. We're converting the RGB to HSL. And then we're taking the HSL and converting it back to RGB. Okay, and we're separating this into 4 values array, and then we're affecting lightness with our controller, and we're feeding this back into the color of this property. So now, if I change the lightness, as you can see, this gets really dark. But if I make it like 0.9, it's nearly as light as this one. So the saturation stays the same, hue stays the same. We're just controlling lightness, which what I want. I just want to make this tiny bit different, but it will stay in the same hue value, right? But if I change this to like blue, as you can see, this gets darker than this one. I can make the saturation really, really bright for the main radar part, but this stays a little bit darker. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing for the dots and the crosses. And I'm just gonna play this in super speed, so you don't have to watch me doing the whole thing again and again. The main color, you can modify this easily. So make it blue, and then with these guys, I can make this like barely visible. I'm just controlling lightness of the color of this axis. For example, can make dots like a little bit brighter, so the X shows up more. Cross in the middle, we can just make it half-half, like 0.3 or even like 0.5. So this gives you a little bit more flexibility. You can add obviously like wiggle expressions to it and all this kind of stuff to make this kind of cycle over time and so on and so on. So that takes care of the color. Now I will show you how to add this displacement on those objects. Okay. So I'm gonna create a shape layer. Building this as a resizable template, so I want to make sure the anchor point always stays center and then the position as well stays center. And if I remember correctly, not the circle math, actually yeah, this was a square, yes, the position was as well that center, so I can copy paste, I'm just copying and pasting the same expressions we used before, so I don't have to keep typing them over. So this will be my displacement. Let's access the color. I don't want to use stroke, I just want to use just the fill. Okay, so we're gonna add fractal noise. What I'm looking for is to get those like really condensed lines with lots of variations in between. So I'm gonna drop it at the very bottom. Those ones are all effects. I'm gonna make them color, change the color of them so I know which one's which. And now what we can do is we can take our circle loop, add displacement map, I believe. There you go, yes. So we can add displacement map and point it at our displacement. Okay, let's just actually saw that so we know we're gonna focus it nice. And then nothing's happening. Yeah, just a little bit displaced because the color of this layer is gray. And so what we want to do is point it at effects and masks. There you go. So you have the whole the whole thing is breaking apart. Now I want to just break this apart left to right. So I'm gonna use horizontal displacement only. I'm gonna use luminance, which is basically bright and dark and bright values. And for vertical, I'm not gonna use anything. And what I found, it's still being affected unless you center it to 0. So now the circle stays in the exact spot I want it to stay. It just gets like broken up a little bit. So if I bring up this fractal noise layer, I can show you. So it gets distorted. So if I play with those values a little bit, okay, now there is this another trick I saw a while ago. It's we can add some extra contrast to these guys in between, like those blocks. So the way you do it is simply duplicate your fractal noise and gonna change the complexity to 1. And let me actually just focus on 1. So I'm gonna turn this one off. Now I want the scale of this be even smaller than the scale of the previous one. So let's just make it really small. And likewise, this is the previous one, and this is this one. And to blend this, you can use something like screen, and they just overlay each other, right? And maybe multiply. There we go. So they get a little bit darker. So now it's without and with. So there's like more variations to them, right? And actually, I'm gonna make the height really tiny. How about we just make it like so? Okay, this is just basically like your personal preference. And now if I look at, turn this off and then look at the circle loop, and let's play with the values a little bit. So let me show you. See how there's these extra glitches going on, like this stuff. There you go. So now this is your normal displacement, and there's like this noise on top of the noise, right? And if you like this look, you can leave this as it is. It's kind of like a glitch. When I was playing with this tutorial, I found that by, just bring this up a little bit here. There you go. You can blend those two values between each other. So what you do is you add fast box blur and add just a little bit softness to it. And what happens is, where is my loop? There you go. So as you can see, it's more smoother. So if I bring the control layer in the rig we built, so this is with blur and this is without. So it's just personal preference. Maybe change it to like 2. So it just smoothens out those glitches. Now you can leave this as it is. What you can do is like create a mask, like another matte for this to kind of just cover a portion and so on and so on. What I like to do is work with looping animations, for example, and I like to loop them with expressions. So the way you can do this is first we have to animate this. So what we can do is grab, where are you, offset turbulence, alt click, and then we can just add, there we go. Okay, so it will just continuously like keep playing up and down, right? So maybe make it a little bit faster, like 75. It's just personal preference. There you go. So it just keeps being like just moving down. Okay, and then what you can do is add another expression to evolution, and this one go times, I don't know, like 50 again. Okay, there you go. There's a little bit subtle effect going on, and then we can do the same thing. Actually, let's just turn these guys off. There you go. So now it's actually much easier to see. So you can see they just kind of flicker in and out, moving up and down. And we can copy this expression for the offset turbulence. Turn on the other fractal noise, the small one, and again apply this again to it. But this one, because it's smaller, I want to go a little bit faster, like 120. Okay, so if I just turn off, there you go. So it goes up and down as well, a little bit faster than the previous one. And do the same thing with the evolution. Times 50. There you go, there's a little bit of flicker going on. It just adds variation to your effect, right? And if you put them together, as you can see, there's lots of this noise going on, and we're just gonna blur this a little bit softer, and maybe just turn the iterations to 2 so we can still see some of the edges. Now, okay, so we have your animation set for the displacement matte. So what you want to do is, I'm gonna use masks to uncover the portion I want to affect my circle. Okay, so if I grab the shape layer and then turn masks, I just draw it like so. Okay, and if you turn this off and then just show the circle loop, okay, and then grab this mask and move it downwards. Yes, so you can see how it's being affected. Okay, now what you can do with mask, there's two things. You can increase the feather a little bit. Okay, so let's see that. Yeah, so maybe like 25 pixels or so. Just this is the pace. So then this whole effect slowly fades in as it moves downwards, right? The whole kind of zigzag stuff. Okay, I'm gonna turn this off, get the mask. So what you want to do is move this off the screen. Set the keyframe to path and move it down to like a couple of seconds in. Set another keyframe down. So when we play this, like third resolution to speed up the playback. This just goes down like so. Okay. Now the problem is if your composition it's longer, let's say using this screen as a part of a film for like a minute long, and you just want to drop it in the shot and you don't want to keep going playing with the keyframes, you would like to loop that. The problem with After Effects is you cannot add loop out expression here. Not gonna work. The expression you want to add is kind of like a hack, just this one. So this means once the mask goes there, it shows up again, basically. So it will keep looping those two keyframes. Let me bring this up to Expressionist now, try to explain this as best as I can. So basically this expression grabs value at time, and this is modulus operator, I believe. Let me just quickly check. Yes, so division reminder. At time at the modulus operator key, number of keys dot time. So what it does, it checks for the number of keys and then slices it in half. So once I think it reaches the end, it just replays these guys over and over and over again, basically. So that's the way I understand how it works. Someone might know better idea how this works. I found this on the internet on one of the Creative Chaos forums with better explanation. Okay, but at least this lets us use the same shape for mask over and over with just only two keyframes. And what's cool about this is you can add like another, actually you don't have to add it, just duplicate it. This mask, just I'm gonna change the color a little bit so I know which one's which. And I can move those keyframes a little bit further, maybe this one a little bit, actually slower, make it like a bit faster. And if I grab this path, now that's the bug I discovered. If this path has expression, there's no way I can grab it. I'm having problems trying to select it because no matter where my controller is, I cannot grab the path. It took me quite a while to figure out what's going on. So what you have to do, unfortunately, you have to disable the expression and then you can actually grab it. So for example, I can rotate it and make it like a little bit thinner. Okay, the first keyframe, go to the second one, select your mask, and you can modify it again. Right, I just want it off the screen. And now simply just apply this expression again, and let's see if this works. There you go, so you have both of them sometimes meeting like in the middle or not. Actually, that happened at the beginning. Oh, it didn't actually. There you go. It didn't apply the expression. I was thinking what's going on. And here's our second, like, distortion going on. It adds a little bit of randomness to the whole thing, which is really cool. So now if we preview that on the circle loop, let's see. There you go. So you have a little bit displacement, little bit distortion going on. Okay. And then you just basically have to tweak this to your taste. For example, like just add like 20 pixel distortion so we are a bit more extreme, or you can add like something in between, just a little bit of zigzag going on. Now that's how we added this kind of displacement to it, to the whole animation, right? The moving up and down, and you can basically simply grab this displacement map. Oh, actually, there's one more thing. You want to move the displacement map after your set matte effect, because what happens is if your displacement happens anywhere near like the edge of an animation and then this kind of goes over, it will show up where you don't want it to be. So this set matte just kind of sets the stage where the layer will show up. Okay, so that's how you do the whole micro displacement thing, and you can add this effect, the displacement, sorry for repeating myself, to all the other like effect, like border or X, for example. Yeah, so you can see this is affecting the border as well. Okay, so glow, this is the last thing and we should wrap up. Okay, so an adjustment layer, call it like a glow. Now this is the effect I learned at Workbench from Joe, and he's really good at explaining it. So I will link it up on the screen and on the comments below. the proper explanation, but basically I made a preset neon, there you go, that adds glow to the whole thing and just makes the whole thing look really, really good. And let me quickly just give you a rundown what's happening. So basically, you're adding the blur to your image, like so. Then you add 3D Composite on top of that to just bring back what you see with this unchecked, right? So you bring it back the whole thing with alpha, with everything. If you have RGB only, it just brings up the colors, doesn't work, and just set it to add. So what happens is, let me just make this like a super high resolution. It's if you keep doing that, you can see how they're stacking up. So first you have like a global blur, then you have a bit of like, you know, a smaller one, and one more. And as you can see, they just keep getting stuck, etc., etc. And then you have this like a naturally looking natural looking neon color. And these guys, they help to correct the color as well. And Minimax helps to push the pixels in. But in my case, it's not gonna work because this is really, really, really small. So I don't want that, because what Minimax does is takes the pixel and says either you are transparent or not, and just pushes the value in, so it helps to preserve those fine details. But this is so small, it creates this weird outlines. If I remove that, there you go, it's gone. Actually, I don't need this hue saturation, I'm just gonna leave this as it is. Perfect, so that's how you make a responsive grid to your needs. And basically this is a little bit heavy on the processor now, but you have like lots of effect going on. But by building this control layer, you can quickly, you know, make lots of changes to all your animation without having to digging through all the options. Likewise, for example, I can just cherry pick this blue and make it a little bit maybe like so. There you go. So you can really customize this the way you like it. And hopefully I managed to explain all the way everything clearly. And if not, just leave a comment below and I'll try to cover this in like a blog post or add extra notes to it. But yeah, that's the way I approach building custom rigs, and that this can be reused as a template. So you can package it up and sell it on, you know, one of the After Effects Essential Graphics templates markets, because you can easily send this off to Essential Graphics panel and link all these values to sliders, and you're done. Cool, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll make another tutorial soon.